We are back for yet another virtual bourbon experience with Railbird Selects and Tastings. I am your host, Drew Franklin from Kentucky Sports Radio, with another fun group of bourbon enthusiasts who have accepted this task of drinking bourbon and selecting a single barrel to represent Railbird 2020. In today's tasting, we have 4 samples from James E. Pepper, place with a lot of history, but got a recent revamp here in Lexington. Before we get to the team from Pepper, I do want to introduce our special guest, and we have a lot of familiar faces. I'll start with here in the red corner, David Helmers, who bailed on us last time, producer of Railbird. It's nice for you to join us again for this bourbon tasting with the team from Pepper.
Thanks, Drew. It's good to be back. And, I was going to say, I was listening to KSR the other day, and there was a lot of praise given to your partner there, Shannon the Dude, for doing his 50-mile walk, which was pretty impressive. But, I think you should get accolades. This is the 9th single barrel pick I think you've done. And I don't know that they're paying enough attention to your endurance.
I agree. I mean, he walked 50 miles in 20 hours without sleeping in direct heat all around Lexington. But, once a week drinking bourbon at home on Zoom, this is tough work.
That's right. It's a lot of work. I think they got to give you more credit for it.
Well, thanks for noticing. And I also noticed 2 of our other returning guests are sharing a room today, it looks like. We have Justin Thompson from Justin's House of Bourbon, and Jomo Thompson's back from the Burl, a neighbor of our distiller today. Guys, how are you all doing?
We're doing great, guys. Great to see everyone. Can't wait to get into some of this rival whiskey, kind of.
All right, well, we're glad to see your faces again. I really like that poster you all hung up in the background there. New to the panel from Vail, Colorado, although I believe he is currently in Lexington, Kentucky, a sommelier and veteran in the booze industry, Stephen Teaver. Stephen, nice for you to join us.
Thank you. I lucked out. Jomo and JT are in the other room, and I'm in Justin's bourbon room. And I think it's going to take him at least 30 seconds to get over here once I start cracking some of these bottles. So. I'll wait till later so it doesn't break it all up. But glad to be invited and glad to be here and looking forward to tasting some whiskey.
Well, we're glad to have you in the Bluegrass, but what all you have going on in Vail? They sent me your bio, and it's a long list of things that you have going on, so catch us up.
It is. Right now, well, just recently, I spent the last decade with the Four Seasons Hotels and Resorts as a beverage director and consultant for a lot of properties in the Americas. But now I'm doing my own thing. Have a couple partners in Vail. We got one bar up and running this winter right before we had to turn around and shut it down. And then when I fly back tomorrow, moving the bar equipment out of my garage where it is currently stored and into my new bar on Bridge Street in Vail called Bad Kitty Lounge. It's going to be a fun little kind of retro cocktail bar. So you'll have to come out and check it out.
Definitely exciting stuff. Now for our guests from James E. Pepper, the people who brought the bourbon. We have Amir, Peay, and Tylar Culver. I'll start with you, Tyler. Tell us a little about yourself. I believe you're the head of operations at Pepper. What else they got you doing over there?
Oh, I do drink bourbon. It's a hard job, but someone has to do it. And pleasure of just doing all the ops and working with the great team. We have a good small team. So another day, another interesting thing happening, but love it.
Well, we're glad to have you. And Amir, it looks like you might be at the distillery. Is that true? I assume that's not your home there.
No, that's correct. I'm in the distillery. This is the retail area of the distillery. I'm the owner, and I guess you could say the refounder of the brand and the distillery. And it's a pleasure to be here today with everybody for this tasting, this battle of the rise. And it's going to be a lot of fun.
Before we get started with the actual bourbon that we'll be selecting here, you all have a great story at James E. Pepper. I mean, I remember when I moved to Lexington, that was nothing over there, and it's really revamped. I guess you opened a couple of years ago after a long project. Just kind of walk us through how that came to be.
Sure. So this, for me, is a project that I've been working on for 12 years. I'm a guy who had kind of a long, strange background, not a businessman, really. I studied philosophy and worked a lot in restaurants and bars and in the wine country in Santa Barbara. I just kind of stumbled around from one thing to the next, but really loved all things food and drink and love history too, and developed a real affinity for whiskey and specifically, Kentucky bourbon. I have some old family roots in Kentucky. And in 2008, I discovered this brand, which had just been completely forgotten and abandoned. And all the history that we've, accumulated over the years that you can see, on video on our website. or in our museum here, all that wasn't in one neat little place with a ribbon around it. You know, I found little bits and pieces. But what I did found really just showed me that it was a unique and one of a kind and truly historical and iconic, you know, American brand, Kentucky bourbon brand. And it would be a really fun project to relaunch it. And that's what I did. And I started in 2008, was easily able to acquire the rights to the brand because nobody really cared about it. But the more I learned, the more I loved it, and just kind of snowballed. And then I started to relaunch the brand, partnering with other distilleries. And over the years, visited the old abandoned historic pepper distillery in Lexington that was shut down and abandoned in 1967 for over 50 years. And then as I built this independent little whiskey business, the opportunity came to rebuild the historic distillery. And I worked on that for a couple of years to put that deal together, and then took a couple of years to build it. And then in December of 2017, we started distilling on site again, using the exact same historic recipe as when they last shut down in 1967. And so it's been a couple of years since we've been in production, and just been a lot of fun. Been a very, very fun journey, and look forward to the future. It's the whiskey business. So, you know, we're in the early innings in a very long baseball game.
Now that you've done all the work to dig up all that history and refound it, and you're in a nice, trendy area, you're across from Jomo at the Burl over there, what can people find if they go check out the distillery today?
Well, I would just say come into our retail area. We have a great selection of whiskeys. You can buy a bottle. You can do a lot of tasting flights. We have a lot of single barrel tasting flights. Right now we have, you know, some 10-year-old single barrel cask strength bourbon. We have, you know, some similar 4-year-old rye like we're going to taste today. And it's a lot of fun to taste a barrel against a barrel, and somebody can do their own barrel pick and only have to buy one bottle. So that makes it a lot easier for an individual person. And then, of course, you can have a great old fashioned, make great cocktails. And we have a full working whiskey distillery in the back. We do everything on site. We pull up water from the historic well 200 feet below ground. We mill our own grain on site. We have open top fermentation and a beautiful custom, one of a kind, 27-foot tall Vendome copper still system. And so it's a, you know, and we also have a museum that really shows a lot of cool tells the story, which is a very cool story, and shows a lot of the cool artifacts that I've acquired over the last 12 years of historical research. So I think people come and they get, you know, they get an intro to a really cool history in the museum, and they really kind of geek out on that. And then after, we switch to a very technical and educational and hands-on and kind of intimate distillery tour that allows people to get a little bit closer up to the process and a little more educated than maybe some of the bigger plants that have, you know, they're just too big and a little too overwhelming for some people. So it's a really great size, and it is a full working distillery. This is not some, you know, show pony, you know, where it's, you know, smoke and mirrors. Like, no, we're cranking out a lot of whiskey. We work with the best, you know, still manufacturer, Vendome, the best distillery architects, mechanical engineers. We've got a great master distiller who's got 20 years of experience. You know, before us, he was with, you know, Seagram's and Jim Beam and Sam Adams. And we just run a really great kind of boutique operation. We got Tyler, of course, who's great in operations. So she's got her finger in a lot of different things around here. But it is a, you know, I will say, I think what I think is a very well-run boutique kind of family operation. Where we focus a lot on quality, and we have a business we built over the last number of years where we sell a lot of products, you know, nationally and internationally. So it's a smaller version of the big guys have, and it's right here in everybody's backyard, right next to the Burl, right in the distillery district. And so it's in a lot of people's backyards, and we hope people come by, you know, pay us a visit and take a tour.
We want to keep hearing about pepper as we go on, but I think maybe Justin was pregame, and we better go ahead and get to the booze as we keep this discussion going.
Yeah.
Come on.
I know we have 4 samples, and I've heard 2 of them are from Indiana and 2 are from Kentucky. So I'm thinking we set up a little bracket here. We'll decide the Kentucky winner and the Indiana winner and put them together. Everybody's good on the samples. I think we cleared that beforehand. Tyler, do you want to walk us through exactly what these are, or Amir, either one, want to just tell us about the actual bourbons we have here?
You want me to take this
Amir,
one?
I'll let you take this one.
All right. So we are drinking 4 different rye. There's all rye. So it's 4 ryes. 2 are 3 years old. They were distilled at the Bardstown Bourbon Company. We partnered with them for a bit of time during a transition where we're building our distillery. 95% rye in the mash bill, 5% malted barley, which is the recipe that we used for a number of years with working with the Lawrenceburg distillery in Indiana, who was a partner I started working with almost a decade ago to relaunch the brand under the 1776 rye label. And so we worked with the Bardstown Bourbon Company to try and replicate that formula. So we weren't trying to recreate a crazy new profile. We were really trying to hit it spot on because we have an existing product with fans and a flavor profile, and that was the goal. We had, worked with the team at Bardstown Bourbon, who's obviously a really great team over there. We brought, obviously, Aaron in, our master distiller. We even brought in Larry Ebersol, who's a former master distiller over at over at the Lawrenceburg distillery. So a lot of thought went into it. It was actually the first rye production, I believe, at the Bardstown Bourbon Company, and we were all very pleased with it. So the 2 rye are from that distillery, 3 years old, and the 2 3-year-old Kentucky ryes are from them, and the 2 4-year-old ryes are from Lawrenceburg Distillery. Same mash bill, a lot of the same process, just a different age statement, but all 4 samples are 110 proof. And I will just tell everybody up front, you're gonna, we were trying to have these match. So there's a lot of similarities. You're not looking at Kentucky versus Indiana, these crazily different mash bills.
Now
for our tasters.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, for our tasters and pickers, are we gonna start? We're just gonna start with Indiana, put these 2 aside and work on those first?
We could do that. Indiana first.
Whatever you all want to do.
Yeah, let's do Indiana 1 and 2. Amir, what I was going to say, a couple things. One, on behalf of Railbird, congratulations on your success and welcome to the Railbird Rickhouse family. We're excited to have you join us this year and hopefully for a long time. And although we're not having the festival this year, these Railbird Select bourbons are going to be available at Justin's, and folks who are coming in to get those bottles, I think you've already pointed out, you guys are really close by. I mean, you're the Lexington local distillery, and so folks who are coming in to pick up these bottles, if they're doing it in person, they can just go right down the road and get a tour of your facility there.
Right. Well, I mean, first of all, we're really happy to be a part of the Railbird barrel selection and to work with Justin's House of Bourbon. 2 of our favorite, groups and organizations. It was unfortunate about these days and times with the festival this year, but in the future, we'll be on the other end of this thing soon enough, and so we're really thrilled to be a part of it now and in the ongoing future, and obviously to work with Justin's. We love Justin's, what they do over there. We always refer people over because we're like, hey, if you like what we're doing here, you're gonna really geek out and love what they have going on over there. So I think any pick that they make from our stocks is going to be one of the best picks from our stocks. I will just say that. So this is going to be a good pick through Railbird and Justin's that people are going to want to get because they've got good palates. So yeah,
we are really excited about this. I mean, I think this tasting is just really cool. How we're setting up one of the best renowned rye makers in the world, the folks at MGP in Indiana. Just fabulous reputation there. And then we've got the new upcomer. And one of the first whiskeys from one of the new Kentucky distilleries. So this is a really fun one that we're looking forward to, and I'm really interested to see who comes out here. So believe it or not, we talked about the Indiana, Kentucky kind of thing right here. I mean, I think Kentucky's the underdog in this one, believe it or not. A lot of folks would say that's crazy, but like I said, this Indiana distillery, the MGP folks make great whiskey. They've been doing it for decades. But I can't wait to get into these and see who comes out.
Let's do it. Let's drink some whiskey.
All right.
Which barrel we trying? Guys, I'm not the one doing the final selection, so you guys call it out. Which one?
So we're going to do Indiana 1 and Indiana 2 first and pick from that side. Our favorite on that.
I think we're gonna build a championship.
Okay.
And I think Justin was right. I went in thinking I'd have a Kentucky bias, but after putting that Indiana, getting a little whiff of it, it's going to be some tough competition.
Yeah, the notes on the Indiana are far better and last a little longer than the Kentucky ones.
Anything you guys are getting particular on the nose of these that jumps out at you? Because I know I'll agree with you once you say it. I'm just not good at articulating it myself.
mean, they're stunning. I like them. I think they both have some nice, kind of straw and heather notes.
I get
Not
that.
quite as much spice as I was expecting. Being familiar with NGP world, LDI juice, whatever. But the noses are great.
I would agree. I mean, I think there's also a lot of fruit right in the middle of it as well that's popping out. That to Tyler's point there, I think that's maybe why she prefers the MGP nose over Kentucky stuff.
Very nice. I definitely don't get, now this is the first sip of whiskey for me for the day. So
Same.
You're way behind.
I'm so far behind everybody here. But I will tell you, we do these tastings a lot. It's always unfair to me, like the first whiskey I taste, I might either not like it or I might like it more. And then I go through the flight and I always have to come back to the first one and try it because I think your palate, it takes a little bit of it goes through a change and there's some things that can happen there. But I mean, I'm liking what I'm tasting here. I get, I'm not getting a huge bouquet off of this first one, but I will say I got some interesting, almost a tobacco note when I'm tasting it, followed by some of that very classic, spice you're going to get, or those kind of minty cloves notes you're going to get. But this one is not, I don't get as much of like a sharp, sometimes when you have this much rye, 95% rye, you can get a very distinct, eucalyptus kind of mint note that kind of pops out. To me, that's a little bit maybe more understated on this one, and not in a bad way, just not as kind of forward.
Yeah, to your point too, you gotta when you come out of the gate, also drinking barrel-proof whiskey here or high-proof whiskey. That first one, you definitely have to come back and revisit it. One way or the other. If you loved it or didn't appreciate it, it could just be because you're waking up your taste buds there.
Totally, absolutely.
I prefer Indiana one with the smoky.
Do you get that note? Does anybody else get that sort of, maybe it's because it's my first sip of whiskey of the day, but to me, it was almost a tobacco smoky. Yeah, that kind of note.
Tobacco.
I definitely do, and I don't know if it's because I'm sitting in Justin's cigar room or not, that the tobacco
that could have something to do with it.
Stephen, how does that work? Did Justin just throw you the keys and you've got the run of the place for the afternoon?
For all I know, he was looking for me for half an hour before this started. I've been in here the whole time, but I don't know if you've ever seen it or not, but it's a secret hidden entrance to get in, so he just never checked it. I've just been hanging out in here.
We're going to slowly start seeing bottles come off the shelf as we go along.
If you're there unsupervised, I can be there in 10 minutes.
Let's go.
Say, I like the Indiana too. It's a lot warmer on the palate. It's a little sweeter. I feel like I get like a brown sugar kind of taste to it.
Yeah.
And for it to be a rye, that was the first one I had. It wasn't as harsh as I normally remember a rye tasting. So, and I'm kind of attracted to that.
Jomo, I got that note too. To me, it was almost like a burnt vanilla note, but I hear when you said brown sugar, that's like, bingo, that was it.
Yeah, the sweetness comes through in that. And I noticed that as well, Jomo. I think you used the term warmth. It does have a nice, sweet, warm taste.
I mean, they're both impressively complex, being that they're just 4 years old. I think they're drinking a little more mature than that. So these are both great choices to start out with for sure.
We're probably about almost 4.5 years old, but you're right. And I think an interesting thing happens with rye. Rye, I think a lot of people might agree. There's just a lot of fruit and bouquet in it that even drinking it off the still or at 2 years old, I mean, you can have a rye at 2 years old. If you like all that vibrant, complex, that fruit note, those kind of minty, menthol, cloves, eucalyptus notes, there's something actually enjoyable out it, at a 2 or 3 year old or right off the still. And the older it gets, it's not that it becomes worse, if anything, but it sort of tamps down the fruit a little bit, what I've tasted. And then you start to get more of the caramelized sugars and the vanillins and the other things and the oak character, and it becomes maybe more balanced, and more of a nuance, but that fruit goes down a little bit. And I don't think one is better or worse. I just think they are different, and it'll be interesting to try the Kentuckys and see, are we getting some more of that fruit, and does anybody like that?
Yeah.
I think one's, you were talking about like eucalyptus. I get a lot of pine too. It's a very piney as compared to the number 2.
What do you think, Mr. Teaver? I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are on these two.
Super impressed with the mouthfeel and the texture of the whiskeys. Being at 110, usually, I mean, you get a little more of that kind of palate ripping dryness and things like that. They're silky, they're sexy. They have a really nice oily quality on the palate. I mean, it's going to be hard to choose between the two. They both have some phenomenal characteristics. They're both pretty seamless. You know, they're not, you know, it's just they're at a sweet spot for the proof, I think, and they're not disjointed. They're great. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, I think I'm leaning a little towards one, actually. I think it just has a little more pop on the finish. I think it just lingers around just a little bit longer than the second one. As you mentioned, I mean, they're both just well-built whiskeys there. You know, you have something on the front end, right in the middle. Both, I think, exhibit some creamy kind of notes at times. But I think at the moment, I think one is just has a little longer finish on it. And that's I'm going to give that the nod for now.
And I agree with, you know, when Jomo was talking about that in the second whiskey, that brown sugar, it's there. It almost, now that I keep coming back to it, it almost kind of overpowers some of the nuance in that whiskey, which makes me really lean back towards number 1.
I'm also pretty good with number 1, but as the sports guy, I couldn't accurately describe anything after what you all just said. So I'm just going to sit here and say number 1.
They're both good. I just went back to 2 and it's like, God,
I don't know. Yeah, two's good.
I'm getting that. I think Amir was saying like that caramelized kind of sugar note on 2. I mean, you know, just normally with the rye, the spice would take that out on a lot of ryes, but you know, it's pretty cool to get that note on 2. I don't know. I mean,
From
like,
a 95.5.
1, but man, 2's also good.
I'll take 2 back to Colorado with me. You guys keep 1 here. Be good.
Everybody wins.
Everyone will just be at the distillery after this. Popping, we'll be drilling holes in the barrels.
Right.
I like the
Is that
sound of
an
that.
official decision? Do we need to fill out our bracket for that round?
Hey, Amir, you're there, right? We're coming.
Should we do the countdown and everyone put up what they're going with there, Drew?
Yeah, I think I know, but everyone just show a 1 or a 2. What you're going with there?
All right, so we're going to count it down.
Oh, no.
So it looks like 1, right?
Indiana
1
1 is on to the finals.
All right. Consolation bracket for Indiana 2.
Indiana 2 is on to my happy hour later. Amir, you already said this, but as we're getting it ready here, tell us just briefly again what the 2 Kentucky bourbons are as we're getting lined up.
So these are 3 years old, 95% rye in the mash bill, 5% malted barley, distilled at the Bardstown Bourbon Company, 110 proof.
All right. So we got Kentucky 1, Kentucky 2.
And so, Amir, you were saying, you know, the goal here was you're following the same recipe, the same mash bill. You're trying to have something that meets a certain flavor profile that people have come accustomed to. But one of the things we've talked about throughout this series is these are all single barrels. So the magic is that, you know, they're all going to be different, you know, where they are in the warehouse, temperature variation, the actual wood staves in the barrel, all those things kind of come together, and that's the alchemy that makes bourbon so interesting. So they're all different.
They're all different. I mean, a single barrel of whiskey is like a snowflake, right? I mean, it's a saying that there's no 2 snowflakes that are exactly the same. It's really unique, and we do a lot of experimentation, and we monitor a lot of things. And one of these big variables is the maturation process, to the point that you can actually take the same distillate from the same production run, put it in 2 barrels that came from the same, you know, cooper, the same exact specs, put them side by side in the exact same rickhouse. So you think you have all these constants, you know, there's like, how could it be different? And they're different. And sometimes, like, surprisingly so, you know, very different. And that's the fun thing about single barrels. And you know, it's a lot of fun to do this here with everybody. And this is actually why we do this at the distillery, as I was saying, where we'll have 3 different single barrel picks and let people try. And really the fun thing about that is watching a group of people do exactly what we're doing right now. Try them, debate them, see what people like, it's personal preference, you know, and everyone trying to say, well, this is what I like and this is the note I get. And it's a lot of fun to do it, you know, but you're absolutely right. I mean, you can have a very different, you know, barrel from one barrel to the other.
Yeah, these are definitely a lot different. I mean, I think my first impression is they're kind of malty, and both have a lot of chocolate kind of characteristics in them. The second one, I mean, it's flashing my head. It has like a Reese Pieces, kind of like a hard candy kind of a characteristic on it. Like I said, both different, creamier, and not as spicy as the first round. You know, I wouldn't guess these are, you know, over 100 proof. I mean, you know, very, very different, very still good whiskey right here that we have in front of us.
Super smooth. When we nosed these earlier, the Kentucky 2, what you mentioned, Justin, the chocolate kind of jumped out at me. I got that right away. But yeah, for the proof we're talking about, 110, these are both very smooth, and I may have a sweet tooth. I think Jomo has a sweet tooth too. But these, I like for that reason.
I'm getting a lot of the same notes. I think, Justin, the malty note, that is a great descriptor. To me, it was almost like a creme brulee kind of a note. And I got more of it on the nose. You know, I got much more on the nose from this Kentucky #1 than I did either one of the Indiana. And then the flavor profile, just it is a bit more youthful to me, a little less of a body, but not in a bad way. You know, it's like I'm getting some different notes in there. But all of them are very drinkable.
I think they're
I'm not
fresh,
getting
not in a green way, not in a bad way. They're fresh, they're lively, they're great. They are.
I think do you guys notice the year? It's about a year difference in maturity. I mean, you guys picking up on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's definitely not the same heat on
Yeah.
it everyone talked about. I mean, the Indianas, you really have a little bite, which is typical of rye, but these, like I think David was saying, that is just smooth, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of plush almost, right? Almost like a velvet jacket or something like that.
I'm curious to hear what our in-house sommelier has to say. Mr. Teaver, what are you thinking there, brother?
Honestly, I heard velvet jacket, and I'm like, I'm in the smoking room. I should have a smoking jacket on.
Who is the guy? Who is the old singer named the Velvet Fog? What was that?
Mel Torme.
Mel Torme. There you go. There you go. If one of these is the picks, it's the Velvet Fog or the Mel Torme. How about that for a name?
I think I really like these. The youth does show, but not in a green way. You do. I think Justin, you were spot on in the second one with that kind of Reese's Pieces. You get that kind of candy shell, but the peanut buttery, the creamy, you know, a little chocolate. The palate is nice. They are lighter as far as the weight and density. To me, they don't quite have as much depth as the first two. You know, I'm personally leaning towards the second one. I think it's got a little more character, a little more unique qualities to it, and just a little more nuance.
Yeah, I think, you know, for me, I agree. The second one, I'm getting more fruit. You know, I'm getting more complexity, maybe more like of a vibrancy in it, you know, if that's the direction people like. And on #1, I get more of that sort of malt, creme brulee, kind of soft note. You know, it's very drinkable. You know, it's easy, really drinkable. But if somebody wants a little bit more on their palate, you know, #1 might be a little too not complex enough, not big enough. Where number 2 to me, definitely there's more, it's got more guts.
But yeah, I mean, and then I just went back to number 1 again after professing my love for number 2, and I'm going, why did you say that? Number 1 now is really showing, showing a little bit more than the first couple sips that I had. It's going to be tough. And also, I think, too, thinking of it in the bracket sense, it's like, all right, let's go blue. Which one are we going to be pulling Kentucky, against? You got to think about that.
That's a really great point. I mean, how do we want to match the bracket up? Because I feel like the 2 Indianas kind of were in the same ballpark in terms of sort of their maturity. And It's like the young stunners versus the old heads, it's like who's gonna take it, But I guess which one of these Kentuckys we pick to go into the bracket will be an interesting thought.
That's right. Help us out, Drew. Is this the 98 and 2012 Kentucky teams? Are we trying to
Those are good teams.
Those are real good teams,
like was saying, like I went back to one, and sometimes folks wonder why you get these different flavors. Sometimes when these guys sit and kind of chill and relax, they do open up a little bit, and you do discover other things. I'm saying that number 1 here is a little mintier. I'm getting some of that mint that Amir was talking about earlier before we got into it, I think, with it. And then I'm saying 2 is more the malty, has a little more of the chocolate bomb on it. So it's just kind of, I think that's, for my brain and my palate at the moment, it's like which one I prefer between those 2 flavor characteristics.
I'll say they're both very drinkable. I mean, they're very, at that proof particularly, they're very easy to drink, the kind of bourbon that you would pour and drink neat. And it's, again, it's like, it's kind of, what are you in the mood for? The number 2 is really, like you said, sweet, almost dessert-like. The first one a little different, but they're good.
Yeah. And to Drew, what I think we're going to find when we had the final showdown here is like, Jomo's point was he thinks these are the smoother ones, and I would agree with that. A traditional rye drinker is probably not looking for that. So, like, I think we're going to have something that doesn't have that real spicy flavor versus something that's a little more mellowed out. So I think that's what we're going to see in the finals is what, which flavor characteristics do we prefer there. That'll be one of the larger things that's going to determine who comes out on top.
Totally.
Hard decisions. Can't go wrong, but we face this a lot.
That's the great thing about whiskey is people come to us sometimes and they go, which is your best? Which is the best? And I go, what's the best flavor of ice cream? And it's like, well, it's totally subjective, right? Which one?
I said mint chocolate chip.
Oh, well, yeah. That's what we're tasting. That's a good one, solid one.
That is a solid choice.
But I think it is very subjective, and so we obviously going to make a group consensus and pick, but I think that's the beauty of whiskey, right, is that there's some people want to go one way and other people like another way, and there's no right or wrong. It's just kind of, and sometimes it's about mood too, what are you in the mood for? I think to your point, David, it's like, there's different whiskey for a different time.
Yeah, some days you want butter pecan, some days you want, chocolate fudge. I get it. Full confession, I worked at Baskin-Robbins, my first job, so I can tell you all about the dirty, wonderful world of Baskin-Robbins.
So that raspberry chocolate is actually the best ice cream out there. All right, I appreciate that.
We're going to fight. And you're just in the other room. I can hear you.
Well, I've got one selected. Does anyone else think they've narrowed theirs down? Should we do a surprise reveal this time or what?
One more sip.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth. I have to do one more pass to determine.
It's fun to talk about as we go. A lot of times when I do barrel picks, I don't want my, what I'm tasting to influence someone else. Like you have to stick to your guns. So, it is fun to hear everyone else's opinion and, but I don't know. I think I'm gonna come out top on this one, but I don't know. It's gonna be interesting here.
We could always do a Rochambeau. We count down to 3, and everybody just throws out their number.
Right.
Yeah,
Either
I like it.
one or two.
I like
It's either
that
one or
too.
two.
I like it.
All right. Drew, you going to count
I'm
us
telling you,
down?
this is a tough one for me. I mean, I'm going back and forth, and I'm kind of on the fence right now. But I think it's a tough one.
I did start out one way. I thought I figured it out, and then, but I have flipped my choice. So I'm going with a different one. So
are we going to, any more guidance, or are we going to do 1, 2, 3, shoot? Drew, you going to call it out?
Shoot.
I'm going to count us down from 3. You got to throw your buzzer beater up, either the 1 or 2. Everybody ready?
Right.
3, 2, 1.
What do we got?
what do we got?
4 to 3.
Oh, we got me.
Dude takes it.
So close. And, so any of us who threw the 2 could have swung it the other way with the 1. And I
started out on 2,
Yep.
and then the last second, the last couple of sips, I just went over to 1. Something was speaking to me there, but they're both, like I said, going to be very good challengers to try to take down this great first pick that we had earlier with Indiana number 2 there.
I did the opposite. I was on 1, and then I switched to 2.
I was on 1 the whole time, and at the very end, I was about to jump to 2. And it was like, you said that chocolate bomb note, I kept drinking. I was like, oh, this is like,
Same.
Stone Ground artisanal chocolate. I kept getting that note. It was like, it was really great. And yeah. So close call there.
I was 1 all the way through.
Man, he knows what he wants. It's just like, that's it. I'm 1.
But we're going with number 2, so we'll see here in the showdown, right?
We have Indiana versus Kentucky, and Coach Cal's not here to stop it. It was Indiana 1, Kentucky 2, and the winner will represent Railbird from the James E. Pepper Distillery. I mean, this is quite a matchup we have here. We need Jim Nance on the call.
And all us Wildcats are going to have to set aside our bias here and be fair.
My bias went out the window the moment I took a sip of the Indiana. I'll say that. It's not about the sports anymore. Justin Thompson, do you want to set a line on this? You said Indiana was the favorite going into it. Do we have odds or anything? Is there a?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, if you just see that, a 4-year MGP versus a 3-year Kentucky rye. I mean, it's almost like a 3 seed going up against what would that be? 14 seed. So that's kind of like what it was starting out. Now I think it's tighter now. Now after we did them both, I'm impressed with this 3-year-old Kentucky stuff for sure. And hearing everyone's thoughts and everything about it, I still think it's going to be I would say Indiana by 3 at this point.
Okay. I got Kentucky to cover.
-3 Indiana at the moment. So, but we'll see.
But Indiana is good.
As they say, there's a reason you play them, right, Drew?
It's fun to come back to the Indiana after spending all that time on the Kentucky stuff and tasting the difference there.
You could these up and blind taste them, but that nose right off the bat, you're going to know which ones are which here. I mean, there's no question about it.
I feel like the Indiana definitely, in contrast to the Kentucky, when you think of what rye is, the spice and the heat, those are 2 noticeable differences between the Kentucky and the Indiana. Because like I was saying, the Kentuckys were smooth, but over here in the Indiana, you had that bite. It was hot on the back of the tongue, and you just get that peppery type of spice. So when I think of a rye, I think it's the Indiana.
That quintessential, yeah. I mean, they really perfected that, 95%, which is basically a pure rye. And that just obviously accentuates that note. and it makes it and a lot of people, that's their concept of rye. And you add the corn, adds great sweetness to it, but it scales and pairs that back, So obviously no corn in either one of these here, but I think, obviously, Indiana, they perfected this. This is their baby, this style. Nobody was making this style of rye. Jamesy Pepper, actually, back in the day, before Prohibition, was making a pure rye whiskey, but that style died away. And I think before the whole, Kentucky, bourbon renaissance, nobody in Kentucky was making that style. So, Indiana had been perfecting it. But I definitely do get more of that sort of, I get the maturity on this Indiana. I get the, some more caramel on there. I get some more just barrel character. I mean, you feel that more, or at least I taste that a little bit.
Yeah, this I think like this Kentucky whiskey right here, this rye would be a great segue rye for those bourbon drinkers that haven't appreciated rye yet.
Right.
But for the folks that know the difference and they've already trained themselves to know what a rye is and what a bourbon and what the two differences are, there's no question they would go with, I think, the Indiana at the moment. I mean, it's got that extra year maturity, extra year and a half on it. I mean, it's just like, for a rye, it's right there. I'm not saying that's better. I mean, I'm just saying, like, if you're looking for something that was to get folks into the rye category, I actually think the Kentucky stuff would be better. But, if you could appreciate the spice that that rye does normally bring, then this MGP stuff is what would be looking for there.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
It's got the pedigree. To butcher this analogy, I mean, we're talking about we're talking about programs. This is a Kentucky, UCLA, Carolina, Kansas. That's where it's coming from. In Indiana.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like a blue blood, like versus like an upcoming like a Wichita State or something. That's
right.
Dude, and the MGP, the Indiana, really is starting to show on the nose for me, at least, like this really dense kind of Tootsie Roll characteristic that is very appealing.
Yep.
While we're getting our final sips, I have a non-bourbon question for Tyler or Amir. How do you all not eat pizza and ice cream for every meal where you have to go to work every day?
Tyler.
Go in the back. Just walk through the back. Don't pass Goodfellas. Don't go near it. Don't smell it. Just keep smelling the whiskey. It's
That's
tough.
a dangerous area over there.
So worth it though. And the ice cream, oof, it's good. You'll gain about 5 pounds working here, easy.
It's okay. You can have some willpower until you sit into a tasting panel like we're doing now. And then after the tasting panel, you're just like, you know what? It's Wednesday, screw it. Like, I'm just going to go. I got to go. It's hump day, pizza, ice cream.
I deserve a trip to Crank and Boom, and I've got to go over and get a slice of pizza. I hear you. Have you guys done anything with Middle Fork there too? I mean, it seems like a natural partnership with you guys being so close and some of the interesting stuff they do. I'm just curious.
Yeah, when they were doing their dinner series, they did a 776 dinner series and paired each entree with a cocktail. It was really, really amazing experience and partnering with them over there. Ooh, good food too.
Yeah, for sure.
Where are we on the decision-making process? I think I'm ready.
I think I am as well.
Same.
Yeah, I had to go to the bench and pour some more of my sample of the Indiana one into my Glencairn's glass here, just to make sure I was getting a full flavor profile. But it's good stuff.
I'm clearing my bench. Everybody's fouled out. We're calling on everybody from both teams to finish this off. Are we going countdown again?
Right. How do we want to? Do you want to assign a number? One's Kentucky, one's Indiana, or?
Oh yeah, I guess we would need to do that. Wouldn't we?
Yeah. So Indiana 1 versus Kentucky 2. So we can just do 1 is Indiana, and 2 would be Kentucky.
Everybody ready to go? I mean, this is one shining moment, seconds away. The confetti's about to fall. Are we ready?
These are very close to me. I would just tell everybody up front. This is I could really go either way. I'm walking a fine line here. I mean, I find a lot of great things about both of them. You know, a little bit more maturity and body maybe on the 4-year Indiana, you know, with some of that very classic notes in there. But then there's just something very appealing about the Kentucky in terms of some of the flavor notes and you know, maybe a little bit of a different flavor profile than some of the ryes out there. So but they're very, you know, this is close for me, but I'm ready.
All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Looks like a 1.
I threw 2 just so I could say I voted for Kentucky. I knew everyone was going to
do
do
that.
Indiana. But the Indiana is amazing, and it's not going to have red and white stripes on the bottle, but it's really, really good. It was my favorite, but I sensed what was happening, so I thought I would throw the 2. Just
let me give you some feedback to help you allay that fear of just, you know, Kentucky over Indiana. We worked with this great Indiana distillery, sold this Indiana whiskey, and it's allowed us to rebuild this historic distillery in Kentucky. So supporting this good Indiana whiskey has helped us to do, you know, what I think is a cool thing in Kentucky. So it's all for good cause, and I do think it is a really nice barrel. So.
Really, I just wanted to see Indiana finally beat Kentucky for once.
In your lifetime.
Yeah.
No. I mean, these are both great choices here. You know, folks think, okay, it's just maybe a year and a half's difference between the two, but like rye does mature and show well in younger ages. I mean, I was very impressed with both, or actually all 4 choices here. But, you know, probably having an extra year on it, or possibly, like Amir said, 4.5 years of the Indiana stuff is probably what really made this kind of an unfair match, I would guess.
Yeah. I will say we have in the distillery with our teams tasted through done a lot of similar tastings actually with this stuff. You know, the 3-year Kentucky against 4-year Indiana for some of our own barrel picks and other things. There definitely is some depth and maturity with the extra year, you know, on the barrel, but some of those Kentuckys were shining. So it's definitely also is a bit of a Rochambeau for the 4 barrels we picked, you know, and this even goes all the way back to the difference in single barrels, even if it's 2 barrels side by side in the same rickhouse filled with the same distillate. There's so many variables to it. So I definitely, you know, want to just for my own part say I don't think, you know, I think they're both great and we picked the right barrel. But although there were some definitely people who thought the Kentucky was the way to go, but I feel like they're both very strong contenders. I'll just put it that way. And so.
Well, I'll just say this is another great bourbon that kind of rounds out the Railbird 2020 selection. This is our last barrel pick. We got 9 single barrels. I think this is our only rye. And, you know, it's a nice addition to what we're offering in 2020. And, you know, will probably be available in October. And as we said earlier, one of the great things about this barrel pick is you can come and pick it up at Justin's and then just within minutes head down and tour the distillery, taste some other products at James Pepper, get some ice cream, get some pizza, maybe have dinner at Middle Fork. But I mean, this is Lexington.
At the show at the Burl.
Catch a show at the Burl. But this is Lexington's kind of hometown distillery now. You know, there are a lot of distilleries within a short drive of here, but nothing closer to downtown Lexington than Old Pepper, James E. Pepper. So it's really cool to have you guys involved this year. We appreciate it so much.
Thank you. It's our pleasure. This is a lot of fun to do this with Railbird and to do this with Justin's and to do this with everybody on this panel. This has been a lot of fun. I've been smiling and laughing a lot, so my face is going to hurt at the end of this, but I'll keep self-medicating and take the pain off a little bit. So this has been a lot of fun and a real pleasure to do this with everybody.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for the invite and my inclusion. These great whiskeys. It was a tough choice and definitely a lot of fun.
I guess that does it. We're going with Indiana from the Old Pepper Distillery. I'll be honest, guys. I knew it was number one the whole time. I tried the sports analogies. Number one was it. We all knew, didn't we?
We did, but it was fun. It was fun going through the process. That's why we watched the early games of the tournament too.
True.
So thanks everybody very much, and cheers. These calls will be out soon. Stay tuned to Railbird channels.
What to look for over at Justin's. This is our new package where we kind of paid tribute to the project to rebuild the old distillery. It tells that story on it, and so this is the one to keep an eye out for at Justin's for the Railbird pick.
That looks great. So enjoy the Railbird Rickhouse Selects, and then I promise you in 2021 we'll all be back together in person, and we'll do this the right way. But this has been an amazing alternative, and thanks Stephen, thanks Justin, thanks Drew for all this. Thank all of you guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Been fun.